Hello everyone, Nikhil this side. So in this video, we will be building a bookstore application with the MERN Stack, and this will be the application which we are building. So we have a various books inside that, and each book is rendered as a single book component. And then once I will go to the add product, so then you will see the URL will be changed, and this is used as an add. So once I will add any book like the Atomic Habits, the author will be James Clear, and the description will be this is a new book by me, and the price can be 450, and the image can be this URL. So once I will click on the add books, so then you will see the new book will be added to the database, and it is now coming from the backend server, and we are fetching the request from the Axios. So once I will click on the update, so then you will see all of the details will be there of the book, and it is coming the ID of the MongoDB, and then we are fetching single product from the ID from the URL, and then Atomic Habits 2. Once I will change all the details like James Clear S, and then this is a new book by me, I will add the exclamation marks, and the price can be increased to the 500. Once I will click on the update, and then you will see all of the details will be now updated in the book. So now we have created these applications, and once I will go to the book, so then you will see the books are coming there. Once I will go to the home, so then you will see we have a button here of the view all products, and once I will click that, so then all of the books will be now shown, and the URL will be changed to books. And then we have about us page, which is showing us this is a CRUD application by the MERN Stack, and this is the application we have built. So now we will build that application. So now about the MERN Stack. So MERN Stack is a combination of MongoDB, Express.js, React.js, and the Node.js. So the MongoDB handles the database operations, and the Node.js and Express.js handles the server-side operations and the API operations like the REST API. And React.js handle the front-end modules like how to click a button and interacting with the backend on clicking anything, and like interacting with the database. So what exactly is the MongoDB? So MongoDB is a NoSQL database which stores documents in the collections instead of the records and tables as in the SQL database. So it is a NoSQL database which stores data in the collection, and it is a BSON type database. And what about the Node.js? So Node.js is a JavaScript engine which is originally built for the browser, but now can work without a browser, having some extra APIs, which is known as the Node.js, and it allows us to run the JavaScript outside of the browser. So it runs on the Chrome's V8 engine that we know, and it executes the JavaScript code outside of the browser, which help us to use the Node.js APIs with other libraries as well. And about the Express.js, so Express.js is the Node.js application framework which help us to ease the process. So Express.js helps building the server-side web application and the APIs, and it is used with the Node.js and the database to create a REST API, and then we can send the API request from the front end. And about the React.js, so React.js, we all know that it is a JavaScript library to build the fast and the scalable user interfaces, and it is a view part in the MERN Stack which help us to render the graphical layout on the screen. And about the MVC pattern, the model and the controllers are in the Node and the Express.js, and which are built with the Node and Express and the MongoDB. So now there will be the parts of the full stack application. There will the backend which will be built with the Node.js, MongoDB, Express.js, and some libraries, and then so it will call the API, and then it will just render the data into it, and the front end will be built with the React.js and the Material UI. And about the backend, so the backend will be built with the Node.js, Express.js, and the MongoDB as we have discussed, and then it will use the libraries as the NodeMon and the Mongoose. So NodeMon is a tool that helps develop the Node.js applications by automatically restarting the Node.js application when any file changes in the happens in the directory. So whenever any file changes in the directory, so the NodeMon restart the application without manually restarting the application. So it helps us to automatically restart. And about the Mongoose, so Mongoose is an object data modeling model ODM library for the MongoDB and the Node.js, which we have used, and it manages the relationships between the data, and it also provides the schema validation, and it is used to translate between the objects in the code and then the representation of those objects in the MongoDB. So it helps us to manage the relationships between the MongoDB by handling the server-side processes with that. And now about the front end, so we have the front end libraries as the React.js which we will use, and we have a Material UI which is a React's predefined component library which have predefined components to use, and the libraries which will be using it, React Router DOM. So the React Router DOM is used for navigating between the pages of our application. So it helps us to navigate between multiple pages of our application, and it creates some routes and render different components for our routes. And it also provides us the link components to navigate to a route without reloading any page. So it will be helpful for us. And the material UI icons, so it is used to add the icons to our web page if we want. So this is the introduction of how our application will work and what we have used and how we are building. So now we are going to build this whole project from the scratch. So now we have a blank sample project on the Visual Studio Code, and I have opened a folder, and now we need to set up a project with the command npm init. So this command will help us to add a package.json file in a directory which will contain all of the descriptions, all of the information of our application. So first the package name would be here the backend, and then it will contain the version, description will be the blank as of now, the entry point will be the app.js, and then test command will be now blank, git repository is also blank, keywords now blank, and all of the fields will now be blank. And then we need to press enter again and again. So then you will see at the final step there will be a package.json file in the directory which will contain all of the information like package name equals to the backend, the version equals to the 1.0.0, the main equals to the app.js, and there will be some scripts. And now to set up some scripts also, we need to add some more dependencies which we have learned in the introduction. And the dependencies would be, first it will be the nodemon, so npm I nodemon. So the command will be the npm I for the install and the nodemon. So it will help us to actually see if there is any file change, and then it will help us to restart the server automatically without any manual configuration. So we need to wait till it completes the installation. And now you will see it is now installed. And then you can also see in the package.json in the dependencies object, you can see there is a nodemon which is of the version of the 2.0.15, and now this is the latest version as of now. So the nodemon is now installed. And now to set up the nodemon with that, first in the script section we need to add another command. It will be the start. So whenever we will run the npm start, so then you will see this command will run. So here we need to add the nodemon. It will be the nodemon with the app.js. So the nodemon app.js will be now tracked in the nodemon package. So now we need to create here the app.js file. And now if I would now add here the log, and it will contain the hello world. So if I would now save, and now we need to add here the command as the npm start. So it will automatically detect the file changes of the app.js, and then you will see it will throw the hello world. And now if I would now add an exclamation mark at the end, 2 exclamation marks, so then you will see without any manual restarting the server, it is automatically showing us the changes which is detected in the app.js. So this is about the nodemon advantage, that how we can use it. So now the second step would be we need to install the express.js. Now we need to stop the server again. It will then npm install express.js. So then you will see it will install the express.js in our application, and we need to wait till it completes the installation. Until that we can go to package.json to see in the dependencies array if it is installed or not. So now you will see the express.js is here installed, which is of the version of 4.17.2. So now we need to add here to the express.js also. And before that we need to add another dependency which is the mongoose. And we have learnt about the mongoose in the introduction section, that what it is, and it will help us to actually connect with the MongoDB to perform CRUD operation with the MongoDB, and it is in very easy way. So we need to add it node. It will be the npm install mongoose. So it will now be installed. So now all of the installations are now complete as of now. And now we need to go to MongoDB, and now we need to set up a new database for that to connect with it and to just directly connect with the cloud. If I will now go to package.json, so then you will see we have 3 dependencies as the express, mongoose, and the nodemon. So now we need to go to MongoDB to set up a cloud database to use it. So then we need to go to the Chrome. So here we need to search for the MongoDB. So then you will see the MongoDB will be here, and then we need to click this link, the MongoDB, the application data platform. So we need to click that, and then we need to sign up, like click on the sign in, and then we have to just sign in from our application directly from a Google account. So you will see there is a login to account option. So you have to click with login with Google, and it will be logged in. And I will create a new application by clicking on this drop down and then new project, and the project name will be equals to like the name is equals to the bookstore. So we need to add the name as the bookstore here, and the project name book store. So now you will see, click on the next, and then you can just click on the create project here. So then you will see the project will be now created, and then we need to go to the configurations with that. Now you will see there will be this database deployment screen. So, and then you will see you have to create a database here. Then you can click that, build a database, and then you can just select a free cluster, and it will be a free, and it is a shared cluster. So then you will see it will be added, and then you can just click on the create cluster button. So it will be added in your application now, in your MongoDB application, and then you can just skip that, and then you have to click on the network access, and the network access you have to click on and add IP address, and then you have to click allow access from anywhere, and then you can confirm again, and then you have to click on the database access, and then you have to create a new database user on the MongoDB. The username will be the admin as of now, and the password will be, if I would now copy here from the auto generate secure password, and then this will be my password, and I will just save it in that, in our file here. So it will be in the app.js. If I would now save it as this, and then we can now just click on the add user. So now the user will be added in that, and then we need to go to the databases again there in the deployment. So then you will see it will be fixed in 1 to 3 minutes, and then the new cluster will be created. Until that we can go to the app.js, and now we need to build our application from the scratch. So now const express equals to the require, and the require will be equals to the express, and now we need to add here the const app, which will be our main variable, which will be our main functionalities, will be equals to the express. So the express will be now called into this app variable, and now the app variable holds all of the functionalities which we have in the express. So it will be the express. Now we have to do it some more imports, like one, there will be the const mongoose will be equals to the require as the mongoose, and then we need to add here the connection with the MongoDB, and for the connection we have to go to the database deployments. Now you will see there will be a connect button with that. Whenever it will be configured, then we need to click on the connect, and then we need to click on the choose the connection method, and then you will see we have a driver of the Node.js version 4.0 later, and then we can click on this URL and it will be copied, and then you will see there is a note that we have to replace the password with the actual password that we have with that, and you have to replace my first database with the name of the database that the connections will by default used. So by default the database will be the my first database, and if we have to change, then we can also change that. So if I would now go to the app.js, and then we have to call here the mongoose.connect, and the connect function will be now called. So mongoose.connect, and the mongoose.connect returns a promise, so we have to call the promise also. So then we can call here the connection string as this, and then we can now just save it, and then we can also use here the password here as we have seen in the note. So instead of this password, we need to get the password which we have copied from there, and you have a different password, so use it, and I will remove this password after this video ends. So don't try this and waste your time. So then instead of this my first database, if I will now use the MyDB, so the database name of this application will be the MyDB, or it can be a bookstore. So the database now is now changed to the bookstore, and now this returns a promise. So we can also use the then statements as the then. So you can see then, so after the then statement there will be a callback inside it, and the callback will be now console.log as the connected to database. So now it will be connected to the database once it will be connection succeeds. So it will be the then, and after this then we have to use it the main app variable, which is the map variable. So it will be the app dot listen, and the port will be equals to the 5000. So now the app dot listen, now this whole app will be on the port of the 5000 on the server which the express creates for us. So it will create a new web server at the port of the 5000, and then we need to just save it. So if any error is now occurred, so then we can also catch the error from here. So it will be the error, and then we can also use here the error as this. So it will be the error in the parameter, and then we can also use the console.log the error which we have. So we can pass here the error. So now if I would now save, and if I will now restart the server as the npm start, as we have done the start script of the nodemon app.js. So now you will see there should be the connected to database. So now you will see it is now connected to the database, and now it is listening to the port of the 5000. So if I would now go to the port 5000 here, so localhost, it is not 3000, it is 5000, So then you will see it will send us the cannot get. But if I will now use here the middleware, and the middleware will contain a routes. So this is the section of the middlewares, and this will contain the route. So if I will now use here the middleware as the app.use, and the use function uses a middleware, and then we can also use here another middleware as the main URL, and the main URL will consist, and the callback function will be there of the request, response, and the next as the parameters inside it, and then we have to also use it. So once it will go to the localhost 5000 and the blank URL after that, so it will just send as the response dot send connected, or like something like the this is or starting app. So now if now you will save, and then if you will go to the localhost 5000 and if you will refresh it, so then you will see this is the starting application which we have built on the node on the express. So this is the sample application that we have now building. And then now we need to create here some folder structure for the files. So first it will contain a folder as the model, which will contain a model of the books, and then there will be another folder which will be the routes. And then for handling the routes and for controlling all of the operations of the routes, we can build another folder, and it will contain the controllers. So these are the MVC parts. So model and the controllers are there, and the view part as per the MVC will be the React application which we are building. So these are the functionalities. So first, if we need to go to the routes, so we can go to routes, and then we can create a route for the product model, for the book model with that. So it will be a new file as the book routes .js. So this file will now contain, actually the JS is there. Now we have the book routes.js, and now we need to go to the book routes. So the book route will now contain a const express equals to the express as the require. We need to provide here the router from the express.js, so it will be the const router will be equals to the express.js dot router. So now this router variable has all of the functionalities of this router. So the const is now different. So now this router variable contains all of the functionalities of this router which we have here, and then we can use here the router dot get functionalities, and the post, and the put also, and the delete also. So now it contains all of the requests. So now the router dot first it will be like the get, and the get function will be there, and it will be the blank URL after the localhost 5000, and then we can also use here a request, response, and the next as the parameters, request, response, and the next. So these are the three parameters which we need after that, and then it will contain some functionalities. So now first, if I would now create here the collection of the MongoDB, like if I would now go to MongoDB there, and now you will see we don't have any collections there. But for the collections, first we need to build here the model of the books, and then we need to create the routes. So first we have to go to model folder, and then we can create a new model. So it will be the book.js, and this will be the model. So then we can create here a new model from the mongoose, like const mongoose will be equals to require mongoose again. So the mongoose is now required, and now we have to use the schema class from the mongoose namespace. So it will be the const schema, it will be equals to the mongoose, which with the namespace which we are importing, and the schema. So we have the mongoose.schema here, and now we can create the schema of the book, like const book schema will be equals to a new schema of the mongoose, and then we are now creating a new instance of the schema, and this schema will contain here all of the functionalities. Like first it will contain a name of the book, and then the name will be an object, and the object we have to provide here the properties like the type. So now then the name property will be of the type as the string whenever we will store it in the database. So it will be of the type string, and then it will be the required field. So if the field is now required, so then we have to add it to the required in the object. So it will be the required as the true, and by default the required is the false, so we can add it to the true, and then we can add the author, and the author will be again the object as the type as the string, and then it will get the required, and the author is also required as the true. So I can copy the author again and again for that. So it will be the author again, and it will be again. So now we have the 4 fields: name, author, and this will be description, and then it will be the price, and then we can also create a one more field after the price. So it will be the available. So this property will show us if this product is available or not, and it is of the type of the boolean. So boolean with that, and the price is of type will be the number. So the type will be the number, and then now the model is created, and now we need to get this model, and now we need to export this model, and this export will now go to MongoDB, and the MongoDB will create a new collection of this schema name. So now we need to add it to the schema database, like it will be the module dot exports, and it will be equals to the mongoose, and now mongoose has a function of the model. So we have to get the model here, and then first the model name will be there as the book, and then the second parameter will be the schema which we have to provide to that. So it will be the book schema. So the book schema now will be there. So now in the mongoose, if we add it to the as the model of the books, so in mongoose it will store in the plural form, and the first letter will be the small letter. The MongoDB database, it will store the book as the books, because it is a by default thing is the MongoDB, and it is by default configured with that. So we don't have to worry about this. So now we have created a schema of the name, author, description, price, and the available, and the available is a boolean property, and all of the things are not required. But if I would now remove it the required from the available, so that we can see both of the options, like the required and not properly required. So now the model is now created, and now we need to import the model in the book routes to add a new route. So it will be the const product will be equals to the require. Now we need to require the product from that, from the model, from the product, from the book. So now it is the book actually. So I'm getting confused with the book or the product. So with that, after the router.get, first we need to add here the route with the model with the book. So first, if I would now add it to the get all books function with that, so this route will handle about this route will provide all of the books. So when then we need to create the new variable as the books, and the books will be now new variable, and then we have to use the try catch block, because it is a server side case. So we should always use the try catch with that, and then it will also be the async function, as we will require await functionalities of the async await also, and this will be a promise based behavior with that. So then it will be the books will be equals to the await, so it will await for it, and then it will be the name book variable which we have, which is the schema of the book, and dot it will be the find. So it will call the find method from the book schema, and it is available in the mongoose. So it will return, if you will just hover over it, so then you will see it will return, creates a find query, gets the list of document that matches the filter. So if we do not provide any filter inside that, it will return all of the things of the books. So then it will return, so now the books variable hold all of the books inside it, and then we can use the catch if there is any error, and then we will just console.log the error as of now, and then we have to check the validations now, like if the books is a falsy value, then we can just return as the response, which is the variable which we are now seeing here, response dot status, and the status function will be called, and then we can call here as the status of the 404 as the not found, and dot it will be the JSON, and then the JSON will contain a message inside it, message, and the message will be now sent as the string, and the string will be now sent as the no products found. And now we don't have any products found, and else there will be a case of the return as the response dot it will be the status of the 200, and it is the status of the success, and dot JSON will be there, and in the message there will be the book main. So it will be the books, all of the books inside it. So I'm not adding a JSON structure here as the books, and it is equals to the books, because ES6 has now configured this problem with that. So we can also get there only the books, and this will behave as the books here. So we can also save that. So now if I would now save, and if I will now just export the router from here, from the book routes, so we need to add here as the module dot exports will be equals to the router. Module export will be equal to the router. So now the router will be now exported as the module. So now if the router is now exported as the module, then we can get from the app.js, so it will be imported. So now we don't need this route middleware with that, so it will be the const router will be equals to require, so it will require the router from that. So it will be actually it will be equals to the, it is in the routes folder, is in the routes, and then it will be the book routes. So now we have the outer books in that, and then we can also use there the app. We have to just pass here the functionality to it, like the app.use, and the use will now go to the main route, and the main route will be now, it will be slash books, so books, and it will be behaved as the localhost. So it will be the main route inside that as the localhost 5000 slash books, and then after this route we need to call here the router. So all of the things will be now handled inside the router there. So when the get request will be now done with the same URL as the books only, so this function will be the call, like this async function will be called, like the let books and this await book dot find and all. So if I would now save, so to test we need to get the postman, so it will be the postman. So you have to click on the postman, and then you have to click on the download postman client, so it will download the client on your system here. So you can just click on the download button, so it will be, there is the button of the download, and I have already installed in my system, so I don't need to download it. And then after the download, so you can continue the video, so please download it. So then we can create a new route with that, and for creating the new route, and then we have to add the URL as the http slash localhost, and the port name will be the 5000, and slash it will be the books as we have stated, and then this will be the get request of the same path. So if I will now send the request, and it should send me the product array, and it should be empty, so then you will see it is now sending us the books. So now if you will now go to the routes, so then you will see we have sent the products, and now this is not a falsy value, so it is returning us the books array, and now the books array is now a blank array, but it holds the array inside it, so it is sending us the books as the empty array because we don't have any book, and the status is the 200 okay. So we have now simply connected the request to the database. So now if I would add here a new product with that, and then you will see we are now creating all of these routes, all of these controlling functions inside this route. So this is not a good practice with that. So if I would now create a new controller to control all of these routes like there, and then there will be more than 6 methods with that, so this file would get bigger and bigger. So we need to solve this problem also, and that's why we have created a controllers folder. So we need to create a new controller as the book controller.js, and this file will contain all of the controlling function which we will handle in the routes. So we need to remove this function for with that as the let books equals to this, and then we can just remove this from that, and then we can call here a new function, like there it will contain as the const. First it will import the book will be equals to require, and the require will be the book, it will be the model, and the model we have the book inside that. And now we can call here the function directly as the const get all books will be equals to the async function, and the async function will be containing the request, response, and the next as the parameters, and then it will be the function now arrow function, and then we can create all of the functionalities here, and then we can just paste all of this code which we have inside it to there. So now we have the get all books function inside that, and then we have to just export this function as the directly like the exports dot, it will be like the get all books will be equals to the get all books. So now the get all books will be now called whenever we will call this all books from any other file. So now we have now exported this file, and now to call this function inside that, so we can go to the router.get, and we can remove this, and instead of this thing we can just import here the controllers here. So it will be the books controller will be equals to require. So it will just require here all of the controlling function. With that, it will be in the different path, sorry, so it will be the controllers, and then it will be the books controller. So now the books controller has all of the things which we require. So now in the router.get function, we can call here as the books controller dot, and we have the function of the get all books. So once it will reach this route as the books as the sample URL and the blank URL with that blank path, so this function will be now pointed to that. So this function will be called. So if I would now save, and if I would now send the request again from the postman, so it shows standard the state of the 200. So now you will see the status is equals to 200, and we have the same response over that. So now we have created a simple controller with the get all books, and all of these functions like the get books, get a single book, and the get by ID, get delete books, and add books and update books. So all of these functions will be now controlled inside these controllers. So these are actually the reason for the controllers in the MVC frameworks. So then we can create another request as the const add products. So it will be the add books will be equals to the async function again, request response, and the next as the parameters, and then it will contain an arrow function with that. So we can create a new product as this, as the let books. So with the let book, and then we can add here the try. So now in the add book, it will contain a new instance of this book schema which we have built that. So it will contain a new instance of this book object, and it will contains the fields as the name, author, description, the price, and the available. So we need to add this inside the book variables. So then try, and then it will be the book will be equals to the new book as the book variable. So now it will be the new instance, and after this instance we have to just pass here an object which contains all of these properties. So then it will contain the name as the request dot body dot name. So once we will add here the name with that, so the request dot body is the main function. It contains the key value pairs of the data which is submitted in the request body, and by default it is undefined and it is populated when we use that. So it will contain the key value pairs with that. So it will allows us to access the data in the string or in the JSON object from the client side. Like in the postman, we will now send here as the request dot body from here. So now you will see there is a body parameter inside that. So it will be the request dot body as the dot name property with that. So we can also just destructure this request dot body objects, like that will be the const, that will the name, and it will be like the author, and it will be like one more thing as we have in this schema. So it will the name, author, description, price, and the available. So it will be the same description, and it will be the price, and it will be the available, and it will be equals to the request dot body. So now the request dot body contains all of these fields, and now we are now destructuring these fields from the request dot body. So it will contain all of the functionalities and all of these methods inside that. So now we can just directly call here as the name, and then author, and then these things will be now considered as the author will be equals to the author. So then this is the new feature in the ES6 as we have discussed earlier also. So name, author, and this is will be equal to description. So the description will be now added, and the price will also be added, and then the available field will also be added. So this will be a new book, and now we have a method of the save with that. So to save the book in the database, we have a method in the mongoose, and then we need to use the await as the book. We have dot save. So the save function will be called, and the save function will save the data in the database. So and then we have to use here the cache. So cache will contain an error. So we will just console.log the error what we receive, and then we have to check the validation, like when, like if the product, if the book is the falsy value as we did in that also. So it will be the return as the response dot status. It will be equals to the 500, and dot JSON will be equals to an object, and the message will be containing as the unable to add. So now if only if the book is falsy value, so, and if it is a truthy value, so then we can send here as the main thing, as it will be the return. It will be returning at the response dot status, and it will be equals to the 5, and it will now equals to the 201 which is the created, and .json with that, and the JSON will contain a message, and this message will now be containing just a book itself. So we have to add here as the book itself. So if I would now save, and if I would now go to the postman, so we need to change the request from the get to the post, and then the method will be the same. And then we have forgot to export this and to import this in the book routes also, so we need to just export this function also as the exports dot export, sorry, dot add book will be equals to the add book function, and it will be pointed to that add book. So then we need to go to the product routes, and then we need to add another route as the post. So router dot post function to send the data to the database, and then the path will be the same URL, and then there will be the callback function of the books controller dot add book. So this function will now possibly add the product in the database. So if I would now add this, and to add we need to add there the body field, and then inside the body we need to click on the raw, and then we need to send the JSON data inside that, and then we need to add the JSON inside it. As first it will contain the name property, and then the name will be in the string as the book name will be now sample, and then it will contain the author field. So the author field will now in the string, and then it will contain, instead of the sample, it will contain author as the ABC user, and then it will contain the description will be there, and then the description layer, this is the sample book. So this is the sample book which we have, and then we can add here one more thing, like it will be as per the schema of the book. So if we will go to the schema, so then you will see we have the name, author, description, price, and the available. So to the price, so the price will be equals to like the 1200, and then it will be the available, which is the property. So it is a boolean property, so we can add here as the true. So we have now the JSON structure over that. So if I would now send the request to the database, if I would now cancel this, and if I would now send this request, so we should see if the product is now sent or not. So I think there will be an error in that, because we are now sending the data to the server, and the server doesn't know which type of data which we are sending. So this is the problem, and for that there is another property like cannot destructure the property name of the request.body as it is undefined. This error will be handled later there. How the server don't know that which type of data we are now sending to this. So we need to add inside the app.js, there will be a middleware which will convert all of the data responses and all to the JSON. So we will use this at the app.use. So it will be the express. So the express has the solution with that express.json. So this JSON function will now convert all of the middlewares, and it will allow us to pass the JSON everywhere through the server. So if I would now save, and if I will now restart the server, so now you will see it is restarted automatically. And then if I would now save again, and if I would now send this request to the database, so it should send the product. So now you will see now the response is the 201 which is created, and now it has sent the product to the database with all of the fields, and it has returned this ID field also and all of these fields also with that. So this is how can we add a product to the database. So now we have completed the add product and the get all products by this. So now we have the ID. So our next step would be to get the product by this ID. So for that we need to go to the book routes again, and then we need to create a new router, and it will be dot, and it will be get again, and this time we need to get the product by the ID. See, if I would now add another product as the sample 2, and the ABC instead of this ABC, the XYZ, and this is the second sample book, and then the price will be equal to 600 with that, and it is available too. So if I would now send again, then you will see it should send the product again to the database. So now you will see we have the 2 products in the database. And if you are not sure that the products are now sending to database, so you can go to the MongoDB in the deployments, and then you can click on the browse collections. So now you will see the collection will be the books as we have seen that in the schema. So it will store all of the data there. So we have to wait till it completes, until it loads to us. So we have to click on the browse collections, and now you will see we have a collections of the bookstore, which is the database name, and the books is now the collection name. And then you will see we have 2 books here with the database and their IDs and all. So this is how can we send the request to the database with that. and then we can go to the books controller to get the product by this ID, and for the ID we need to get this ID from there. So from the URL we will get the ID, and to get the ID from the URL we need to add here the parameter inside the parameters, so it will be the ID. So now there will be the ID in the URL itself, and then we need to get this ID variable with that. So for that we need to get this ID in the controller. So it will be a new function as the const get by ID. So it will be the get by ID. So we can call this function after this get function as to just respect the structure. So it will be the async again, and then it will be the request, response, and the next, and then we can call here a function with that, and then we can call here the book as the let book will be non-defined. And now we need to get this ID first. So to get the ID, it will be the const ID will be equal to the request which will be sent from the database, which will be send request dot, and it will be the params. So it is available in the params object, and dot ID which we are now sending. So the request dot params will return the ID which is available in the URL in that. So this property is an object which contains the properties mapped to the route parameter. So now we have given the route parameters as this ID. So we have to get this ID from the request.params as the request.params. So if I would now change this ID in the book routes to something else like the book ID, so then we need to get this as here the book ID. So it will be the book ID with that. So but we will directly go with the ID only. So we need to go with ID. It will contain the ID with that. So then the books controller is now defined, and now we need to call here the book. So now we will use here a try catch block with that to get this product by the ID. So it will the try, and then it will be equals to this book. It will be the book will be equals to the await, as it will wait for it, and dot book schema and dot, and it will be the, and it has a method of the find by ID. And if you will just hover over it, so then you will see it finds a single document by its ID field. So the find by ID is also equivalent to the find one by ID. So if we are using the find one method from the MongoDB, then we need to pass here the filter as the ID. So it will return us a single document. So we need to pass the ID as per the matching document. So ID. So now it will send us a ID, and it will send a query to all of the documents in the database, and then it will fetch by this ID. So then we can call here the catch. So the catch will get the error, and then we can just console.log the error. So now we have the catch error. So then we can see the same validation as we did in that. We can also add it there. So if we don't have any book, if it is a false value, then we can send this that as the no book found. And then if we have the book, and then we can send this as the parameter as the book with that. To use this function, now we need to export this function also, like it will be the exports dot, it will be the get product by ID, like the get ID equals to the get by ID. So if I would now save, and if I would now go to the book routes, and for the book controller, if I would now use here the function as the get by ID, so it will be pointed to that function. So now if I would now save, and if I would now go to the postman to send the request, so there if I would now get the request, like I would now check how many products that we have in the database. So now we have the 2 products. So now if I would now get the single product sample, which is a sample book by its ID, and then if I would now save this, and after this book's URL, now we need to pass here the ID is there. So if I would now send the request, it is now sending us a single book with the ID of this, and now you will see the ID equals to the sample and the author equals to the ABC. So now we have created another route with the get by ID. So now if we have the ID, now we can get and update a product by its ID. And to update a product, we need to go to the controller, and before that we need to create a route, and the update route is the put route as we know in the HTTP methods. So it will be the router dot with the put, and the put request will be there, and again we will need the ID. So it will be slash as the ID parameter as the ID field in the URL in the route, and then it will be the books controller as of now. So then we need to go to the books controller, and then we need, like if I would now remove this add book as of now, minimize it, and now we need to create a function as the const as the update book. So this function will handle all of the updating in the books as the async, request, response, and the next. And then we need to add here the arrow function, and now we need to get this id again. So the const id will be equals to request.params dot id as we did in that, and then we have the id. Now to update the book, now we have a function in that in the mongoose, like the schema has the function of the find by id and update, then we will use that function, and the find by id and update will just query all of the documents by their id, and if the id is now found with the product, then it will update that product in that in all of the database. So we need to add it with the books. So then we will need to send the product data, then we will need the request.body also to send the updated data to the database. So then we will need this. So request.body is now there, and then we can create a book as the let book, and then we can use here the try catch. So try, and then we can use here as the book will be equals to the await. So it will wait for it, and then await it will the book dot find by id and update as we have discussed now. So this function, the first parameter will be the id. So the id we will pass directly, which we will get from the request.params, and then it will contain the update query. So the update query will contain an object which will contain all of the fields which we need to update, like it will be the name, we will need to update the author, we will need to update the description, we will need to update, and then it will contain the price and the available. So all of the things which we have now discussed in that, so it will be added to the request.body with that. So now this function will update all of the fields which we are now adding here. So we need to call it as a book.save here as the await. So we can directly just access this value as the book will be equals to the await. So the books will be equals to the updated value as the await of the book which we hold, and dot save. So the save function will now save this document, and then we can call here the catch function with that. After this try, that will the catch if there is any error. So we will just console.log the error. So now we can handle the validation also with that. So we have to copy this validation again, and this is a simple validation only. So we need to copy this, and then we need to paste this. So now if the book is a falsy value, so then you will say request.status equal to the 500, or like it will be the 4 of 4 and the no id returned as unable to update by this id. Then you will see we don't have any id then, and then after we have found the id, so then you will see it will be the 200 status, and .json will be the returned book. So now if I would now save, and if I would now add it to the export, like exports dot update book will be equals to the update book. So now we need to use this update book in the book routes at the book controller dot update book. So if I would now save, and if I would now go to the postman again, I should see there is no any error in this in there. So now you will see if I would now check here as the put request as the HTTP, and we have this id. So if I will now use this id only as we are now using this, so now we have a data of this, like if the product is now the sample, so we need to set the sample, update it. So the name is now updated, and the xyz again, like it will be the updated name. So this is the description, and the price equal to 600, and instead of this it will be 200, and this available will be equals to the false. So if I would now save, and if I would now send the put request to the database, so we should see there should not be any errors. So now you will see the status equals 200, but now the books is now sending us the previous data which we have. But so as per the code execution, it is immediately sending us the results over the window. And then if I would now go to the MongoDB database to check if it is updated or not, and then if I would now just refresh the page here, so now you will see sample updated and the updated name, and this is a description which is also updated. So if I will now zoom in, so then you can also see the sample updated. So now the product is updated. So if I will now get this product by this id, so this product with name would be now updated. So now you will see now the update functionality is also working, and now the only functionality remaining is the delete. So to add the delete also, it will the router dot delete request, and dot delete again it will be the id, So ID will be there, and then we need to add it to the there also at the books controller. So the books controller dot function would be there in the books with that. Then after this update, now we have the ID. Now we can also delete the product again, so it will be the const and async function again. The async function will get the request, response, and the next. And then if I would now add this, so now you will see we have the ID. So we can get this ID from the URL const ID equals to request.params.id, the let book. So it will be the book with that, and then we can use it as the try catch again. So then you will see we have a function in the schema as the find by ID and remove. So now the schema will contain a function with that, and it will just remove the product with the ID which we have. So if I would now use it as the book, will be equals to the await the book schema which we have, the book object, and dot we have a function in the mongoose that as we have discussed at the find by ID, and will be the find by ID and remove. So the remove function will now remove the side book. So we need to pass here only the ID, so only the ID will be there. So it will just save. So if I would now catch this error as the catch, or then we can just call here the log, and we will just console.log the errors. So this error will be now logged, and then we can use here the validation again. So it would be this validation. So we can get, and then we can just paste this validation here, like if the book is now not there, and if it is a false value, then we have to return as the 404, like the unable to delete, and then by this ID, and maybe the ID is wrong, and then if it is now deleted, then we can send the updated data with that. So then now the function is now completed, and now we need to export this function as the exports dot as the delete book will be equals to delete book function. It will point to delete book, and then we can use it in the products controller as the delete book. So if I would now save, and if I would now go to the postman, and now if I would now get all of the products by sending the request, so now we have the 2 products in the database. So if I would now get this ID like the sample updated, and then if I would now select the request as the delete request, and we need to pass this ID. So if I will now send, so it should be deleted. So now you will see this product is now deleted. So if I would now get all of the products with that, like get this product, so then you will see, so now you will see no book found with this. So because now we have deleted the product, and instead of this returning this book with that, we can return here as a message again, and then it will contain as the product successfully deleted. So if I would now save it, and if I would now send this, and then we need to add here another product for that, like post with this product, like the sample updated. So it will add the product to a database, and we will get this ID, and then we can send the delete request again from this ID. So if I would now send this, so then you will see it will show us the message as the product successfully deleted. So now the book is deleted with that, and now we have completed the backend operations which we need to build in our application, and now we need to utilize it in the front end to make a full stack application. So now we have built the full backend, and now we need to just continue this server, and then we need to just create a React application in the front end. And first we will create a layout of how our products and how our books gonna look, and then we will just integrate over this application. And to use it, we will just connect all of the things, and then we will send request from there to here, and then we will send the post and the get request and all of the requests from these XCOs, and then we will just receive all of these objects here, and then we will just send responses to there. So now the whole backend is completed, and now the only thing which is remaining is we didn't edit the image in the database. So we have to create an image also in the schema. So we have to go to the book.js, and then we need to require one more thing with that, and it will be an image. So image will be there, and then it will be of type of the string. So the type will be the string, and then we need to provide as a required field, and the required will be equals to the true. So now we have also have the image, and now to send the request to the images, we need to go to the controllers, and then we need to get the images also. So while updating the book, we need the image, and while adding the book, we need the image. So there will be the image also. So image will be the URL of it. So the request.body will also contain an image, and then we will delete all the products from the database, and then we will add the images with that also. So now we have the image here also and here also. So there will be the image, and then available it will be the image again. So these are about the changes. So now all the books are now coming inside this. So we have to delete this book also. From the delete request, we will grab this ID from this field, and then we will add this ID here also. So it will contain this ID, and then we will delete all the products. So now we have the product successfully deleted. And now if I will now get any product there, so all the products will be now the blank array inside this request. So now the status is 200, which is okay, but the array is now the blank. And now we will add some images URLs also. So I will grab one image URL there. So we will add the image also here. So it will be the image, and then there will be the URL of the image. So it will be the URL, and the image name will be now the world power, and the image name will be there. Author, it will be just updated name, or else and anything it can be like the Sam. And then this is the description, and the price equals to 200. The available is false. So if I will now send this request via the post method, so it will send the request to the database, and the product will be added as the world power, and now we have the image URL also with that. So now we will add two more products with it. Now this will be another image with that. So now we have the two images and the two books in the database. So if I will now get all the products, so now we have the two products now only in the database. So first book is the world power, and the second book is the almanac of the Naval Ravikant, and it is written by the Eric Jorgensen. So now we will build the whole front-end app with this. So for that we need to just create a new folder inside that. So I will now create a folder here as the backend, and then I will move all of the things inside that. So we have to create that. So we need to go to the first, we need to stop the server, and then now the server is stopped. So then we need to create a new, we need to open it in the file explorer, and then now it is open, and now we need to open this, and now we need to just copy this, and then we need to create a new folder as the backend. So these things will be now moved to the backend. So now we have it in the backend. So actually this is showing us as it is opened in a file folder. So if I will now remove this from here, and if I will now try this again, so now it will be moved to the backend. And now we will open the main project, which is the YT projects in the Visual Studio Code, and then we will create a new blank React application into that. So then we will create the React application now. So the terminal will be opened within a moment, and then I will close all the files from that. So now we need to go to the terminal, and then we need to create a new React app, and the React app command will be the npx will be the create -react the app, and the app name can be the bookstore, like book store. So if I will now enter, so now you will see the new React app will be now opened here as the bookstore here, and then we will use all of the dependencies with that. So we have to wait till it completes the installation of the React app. So now the new React app has been created. So now we need to go to the bookstore app. So it will be the bookstore, and then we need to run the app with the npm start command. So it will start the application. Until then we can move on to the bookstore, and then we can see what we have there in the React application. So we have the app.js file, which contains a default header, and it will contain a logo. We have here the index.js, which is a root file of the application, and then we have in the public folder, and the public folder has the index.html file, which is the only HTML file in the React application. And this file contains a div with the ID of root, and this ID root will be now considered in the index.js file which we have there. So there we are now rendering the main application, which will render all of the component inside that, which is the app component inside the document.getElementary by ID, which is the root. So it is now rendered inside the root. So there we have the only HTML5 inside the React.js, and now this is the blank sample project of the React application. And now we will just configure it by removing some files from there. Like if I will now go to the app.js, and if I will now just maximize it, and we need to remove all of the things from here, from the header till the header, and then we need to remove the div also from the class name equals to the app. So there will be only div, and then we need to remove all of the things from inside that, and then we need to go to the index.js, and then we need to remove the report web vitals from there, and then we need to remove the import also from that. So if I would now save and if I would now go to the browser, so now you will see we have the blank application which has nothing on the screen to render. So now we will create the whole application from the scratch. So now we need to install some dependencies as we have discussed in the introduction. So first dependency would be the material UI. So we need to go to the material UI website, and then we need to install the material UI from that. So then you will see it is a React UI library which we always wanted with that, and it contains all the predefined components which we can use in the React application. So it has the predefined components. So we need to just stop the server, and then we need to paste this command from there. So we have to copy from there, and then we need to paste here, and then the dependencies would be now installed in a moment. And then we need to go to the material UI icons also. So then we need to click on the search, and then we need to search for the icons, and then you will see the first button will be the of the icons, and then we need to click that, and then we need to install the icons at the rate material UI from there. So this will be the command if you are using the npm, or if you are using the yarn, then this will be the command, and then we need to install from there. So now the material UI is now installed, and now we need to paste this command for the icons of the material UI, and then we need to go to the browser again, and then we need to search for the React router DOM, and then we need to click on that, and then you will see there will be a quick start guide from the reactrouter.com. So then we need to just install that. So it is showing us the version 5, but we will use the latest version of it, and then we will go to the second link, which is the declarative routing for the React applications, and then this is the version 6, which is the latest version as of now, as of January 2022. And then we need to just click on the read on docs, and then there will be the installation steps over there. So now if you will check the sidebar, so then you will see there is an installation bar, and then you can just click on the npm, and then you will see this is the npm install at the react router dom at the rate 6. So then we need to add this command here after the React icons will be now installed from the material UI. So we need to wait. So the icons are now installed, and now we need to install the React router DOM at the rate 6. So it will install the version 6, which is the latest version. And then we need to go, and then we need to create the folder structure for our application. So first there will be a source, and then inside the source there will be a folder of the components, and inside the components there will be two files. First, which is the header component, header.js, and then there will be another component inside that, and it will be the addbook.js, and then there can be a new folder inside the components, like it will handle all the books operations like book, and inside the book there will be a single book.js, and then there will be a books.js which will be the container books.js, and it will render every single book from this book component. And then we will have here the book detail also. So it will the book detail, and then now all of the things are now completed, and now we need to just build the application. So first we will go to the header to first build the header, and for the header we need to just import the material UI app bar from that. So first we are inside the header, and now I will close all other files with that. So close others. So now we are only having the header file. So inside this header now we need to build the basic setup of that with the rafce command. So you can use this extension from going to this extension app, and then you will click on the they has the ES7, and there is the I think these are, so now this will be the ES7 React Redux snippets. So whenever we will click on the RAFCE, so it will give us the blank application which will just importing from the React and the header component and the exporting of the default. So with the help of that we can do this. And then inside the header, if I will now just import first, it will be the application bar import at the app bar, and it will be from in the strings it will be the @MUI material. So it will be now installed from that. And now inside this div, if I will now just render an app bar of the material UI app bar, so now the app bar will now be there. So we need to select that, and then the app bar will be now there. And then inside this app bar we have to pass a prop as the position, and the position will be the sticky as of now, because now we need to render more things inside that. And then if the position would be by default and it will be fixed, so it will just overlap all of the things inside that. So we need to add the position at the sticky, and then we need to just save. So if I will now save, and if I will now restart the server again, npm start, and before restarting the server, the main step would be we need to go to the app.js, and then we need to render this application, the header. So the header will be now imported from this. So now you will see the import header from the components header. So then we need to save, and then we need to run the npm start. So this will start the server, and this will show us the header component inside the web browser where the application server would be running. So we need to wait. So now the application is now compiled. So if I will now go to the server, so then you will see there will be nothing on the screen. But if I will now move on to the header, and if I will now render something inside that, and it will be the typography component from the material UI, and this component will help us to render some text inside that. So if I will now render anything like it with the bookstore, so if I will now save, and if I will now just go again, so now you will see when it will be compiled, so then you will see there is the navigation bar on the top, which is provided by the app bar component, and the typography is giving us some text over it, which is the bookstore. So instead of this bookstore, if I will now go to the material UI icons, and if I will now search for any icon inside that like this, so there will be like the book. So we need to search for any icon, so it will be the book, and then we need to render the book there. So the book will be shown, so we can get this library books from there, and then we can just copy this URL, and then we can just import it from the MUI icons. So then you will see it will just automatically import, and then instead of this text we will render the library books outlined icon from that. So it will be that, and then we have to just save. So if I will now save, and if I will now go to the server again, so then you will see instead of this there will be the logo of our application there. So now you will see this is the logo, and then instead of this typography, now we have to render all of the things inside the toolbar component in the material UI. So the toolbar is the thing which will help us to give a basic structure of the application inside that. So it will just maximize the components inside that, and it will just give us the real look and feel of how the navigation bar looks, and then it will help us to do that. So there will be the toolbar, and then we need to import that, and then we need to render this typography also inside this toolbar. So it will give us the structure, and it will render all of the things inside the line. So then if I will now copy, and if I will now paste this toolbar inside that, so now you will see it will be the extended. So now you will see it will give us the basic functionality of it, and now you will see it is looking good inside that. And then we need to create some more things here now, and now we have here the tabs in the material UI, which will help us to provide us some links. So then we need to add after this typography, we need to add the tabs, and the tabs is that container in which we will render single tab of the URL links. So it will be the tabs, and then we need to provide here the value first. So if I will now just skip this value part, and if I will now just render single tab like this single tab, and then and then this will be the self-closing tag. So we need to render here as the label. So the label prop will be given to that, and the label will be there, and then this will be the string which will be shown inside the material UI tab. So if the label would be like the add product, so this will be the label there, and then if there would be another tab like it will be about us, so it will be the self-closing, and the title would be equals to, the label would be equals to like the about us. So if I will now save, and if I will now just compile again, so now you will see there will be two labels inside that, at the add product and the about us. So if you will click that, then you will see there's a ripple button effect inside that, and then we need to add there the value inside the tabs. So whenever we click any of the tab, so it will be underlined inside that. So for that there is a value component, there is a value prop inside the tabs, and if the value is 0, then it will render the first tab inside that. So if I will now save, so then you will see by default the first tab will be the underlined, and now you cannot see it because the color is now the same of the tabs. So if I will now add as the indicator color, so the indicator color, if I will now provide as the secondary, so if I will now save, then it should be the secondary color in the indicator. So then you will see the line is there, and there will be another thing as the text color, and the text color would be the inherit. So if I will now add this, so then you will see now the color will be inherited from that add product, and now you will see this is having an underlined inside that. So now we have two labels inside that, but the value will always be the 0 because it needs to be updated dynamically, and then so it will render one by one tabs inside that, and it will add their value as the 0. So if I will now add it as the 1, so then you will see now the value will be from the about us, and it will be a open tab. So then we need to fix that from the use state from the React, and it will help us to fix that for the use state. So the use state will help us to actually grab a state and then update their state from inside that. So it will be the use state, and then there will be a snippet of the use state. So first it will be having a value, and then it will set value, and then there will be the default value as the undefined. So it will not show anything. So first it will get the value as the default value which we have in the use state, and then the second thing which we have would be the set value. There will be the on change prop, so there will be the on change, so the on change is there, and then this on change function will get an event inside that event, and then it will get the value inside their prop, and then we need to set the value as the set value. So the set value will now have the value inside that. So this value will contain the number of the tab, and this event will contain a current target which we have clicked onto that. So if I will now save, and if I will now go again to the React application, so once I will click the add product, so it will have the underline, and once I will click the about us, so then you will see it is still having the underline. And if I would add another tab as the all of the books inside that, so there will be another tab as the books, so there will be the label of the all books, and then this will be the about us, and this will be the books. So if I would now save, so then you will see there will be three labels at the add product, books, and the about us page. And then if we need to render all of the tabs inside the right, so then we need to provide there and the CSS inside the tabs. So for the CSS we can provide there's the SX tab, and this tab is allows us to add some CSS directly onto the component which we are rendering, like the tabs. So the CSS would be there as the margin left, the short form of the ML. So it can be the auto, so it will render all of the tabs inside the right. So now you will see all of the tabs are onto the right side. And then if we want to change the color of this app bar, navigation bar, app bar, so then we can also change the color by adding a SX prop with that. So this will have a SX as the is equals to the background color. So then we can just wait for the real prop which will come as the background color, and it will be equals to the color hex. So if I will now go to the color tabs, and if I will now grab one color, and if I will now paste, so this will be my color. So if I will now save with that, so now you will see we have a different color on the navigation bar on the top. And then if I would now add on the add product, and now I have changed the indicator color to the primary, so then it will look good also. So if I will now click on the add product, so then you will see all of the links will now render there. And now we need to render the links into that, and to render with that we need to add one more thing inside the single tab, and it will be the link component prop, which will help us to add a link component inside that. So the link component will be there, and now the link component would be the nav link from the React router DOM, and the nav link will help us to add the navigation bar links from the React router DOM. So we need to import that. So it will be the nav link from the React router DOM. So it would be imported from that, and then we can use that. And then the component of the link would be the nav link. We have to render this directly from here like this, and then we need to render the nav link props here only. So there will be the 2 from the nav link, and then 2 will be equals to the link, and then this will be the in the strings, and then this 2 tab will be as the hash add. So this add product will go to the add product link like this add, and then same to this link component here also. so the link component from here, and it will be the nav link same. And then we need to render the 2 will be equals to the slash, and it will be like the books. And then the same would be there as the nav link as the link component and the 2 prop. So we need to render here also inside the tab. So the nav link as a link component and the 2 will be equals to the about. We have now missed to wrap the browser router component to the whole application, so this will give us the error and it will not run the application. So if we will go to this, so now you will see there with the location error and the links error inside that. And now the only important thing in the React router DOM first is the we need to render the browser router over the whole application, which will be in the index.js. So we need to render the browser router between that. So there will be the browser router. So it will be imported from the React router DOM, and then we need to wrap the whole app component with that. So it will be added here. And then if I will now run again, so now you will see there will be the links on the browser. And then once I will click on the add product, so it will go us to the add. And once I will click on the books, so then it will go us to the books. And then once I will click on the about, so it will go to the about. And most important, without refreshing the page, it is navigating to between the links. So now the thing is remaining, which we did not render anything between these links. Like whenever we move on to the add product, we don't have any content on the page, and for that we need to go to the root component, which is the app.js, and then we need to render some routes here. Like, so now we need to import the routes from the React router DOM, and it is the main container in which we will render every single route which we have in the application. Will be from the React router DOM, and then we need to render the routes, and then we can just modify the return statement here from there. So it will be, we need to remove this, and then we can add here the React dot fragment. So then we need to render here first, there will be the header, and the header will always be available between every route. So we need to render the header component here, so the header will always be available. And then we can render the main section between a web page, and the main component will help us to add some routes. So there we can add our routes, which is the root container of the routes, and then we can render every single route with the route, and it will also be imported from the React router DOM. And in the route we can pass here the path, and first route will be the path of the default path, and the default path will render an element which will be equals to an element with that, and the element can be an home. So we have created a home.js file here, so we can render here RAFCE to add a basic functionality here. And in the div we can render like this is home. So if I will now save, and if I will now move on to that, and then we need to render here the home, it will automatically import it from the component, set that it home. And then we have to render here a boolean keyword prop, which is the exact, and the exact help us to match the exact route with that, or else whenever we routes codes to the like the books or abouts or anything with that, so it will match this route also, and this will render all of the components with that. So we need to save that routes. So then there will be another route, we can copy this, and then we can add another route, and then the path will be like the add, and in the add the element will be the add product. So the add product, we have already created a file with that. So the add product is here like the add book, and the add book, if I will now go to add book, and if I will now add a basic functionality to it, so it will contain add book and add book from here. So then you will see it will be there, and then we need to import the add book from here, and then the same route would be there. Like first it will move on to the another thing, which is the it is the books. So the books element will go to the books. So we need to go to the books.js, which we have there, and then there we will render all of the books. So it will contain all of the books, all books are here, and then we need to go inside the books, and then we need to import the books. And then there will be another route, which will be routed path equals to, the path will be the about. The about path will render the about.js file which we have there. So RAFCE, and then this is about file, this is about us page. Then we need to go to the app.js again, and then we need to render the about us component about. So now we have created all of the routes. So once it will go to this route, it will render the home component, and once the browser will go to the add route, will render the add book, and once the browser will go to the books route, will render the all of the books which we have there. And once the router path will be equals to the about, it will go to the about and without any change. So if I will now save, and if I will now go to the browser again, so now you will see we are in the about us page. So this is now the basic page we have, and if I will now just remove all of the thing, and now we are in the default application. So then you will see this is the home page which we are now rendering in that path. Once I will click on the add product, so now you will see we can add the books from here. And once I will go to books, so all books are here. Once I reach the about, this is about a space, so we can render another thing by clicking on this red, but we can do that later. But now we will render the books inside that. So now we will create a basic sample of all of the books. Now we are in the books.js to render all of the books. So first thing will be like we need to create a URL. Like first it will be the URL to fetch from the Axios. URL will be equals to the blank URL, and the URL can contain http:/localhost @5000, and then it will contain the books which we have in the backend. So then we can create a Axios request to make a new request to the handler, and then it will be export. So like we can use the same Axios function with that. Cons fetch handler will be equals to the function, so it will be fetched from the Axios. So we can now import the Axios from that, and to import we need to go to the Axios and we need to install the Axios. Like the Axios will be installed from the npm.js, and the command to install will be npm i-axios. So we need to go to the terminal and we need to select the command, create another terminal as the PowerShell, and it will be cd to the bookstore, and then write the command as the npm install Axios. So it will be installed, and then we can create here the request to the Axios. Like first it will just create here a new request, like we need to get the request. So the Axios is now installed, and now we can create a new get request with that. So it will be await and the Axios which will be imported from that. So we need to import that first. Import Axios from Axios. So then we need to get a new request like axios.get, and then we need to pass here the URL which we have. So URL is this, and then we can just send here as the, then it can use here the then as this is a promise, and then we can render here something like the then after this get request it will send us the response. So we can get the response, and we can just get the response dot data from the Axios. So this data variable will get all of the data with that, and then we can just return this, like return await axios.get URL, and then we need to get the data. So then we can use here the use effect. So the use effect snippet will be there. So use effect is a function which runs after the component is rendered into the browser, and then it will only runs once. And if we provide any dependency array over there, so whenever the dependency array value will change, it will rerun the use effect only. So this will run the component once after the component is loaded if we do not provide any value over the array. But if we provide any value to the array, and if the value is changes inside the array, so it will rerun this function use effect, and it will render the whole page into the browser. So this is the use of the use effect, and it is good for the asynchronous tasks that we have there. Like we are now fetching the request from the fetch handler, so it is now advantage with that. So then we can call here the fetch handler, and dot then it will add us the data, and to add the data we can use the use state from the React. So it will contain the use state. As we know about the use state, that it will just generate a state variable, and then it will just state the set state into that, and then it will contain an initial state. So instead of the state we can add here as the books. So it will be the books, and then it will be the set books. So it will be the use state. By default it will be the default empty, which is the undefined. So then we can also import the use state from the React, and then we can just set the data which we will receive inside that, because now this is returning the data. So then we can just set the data like the set books equals to the data. So if I will now save, and if I will now just console.log the data which we will receive, if there is any, like the data instead of this data, this will be the books. So now if I will now save, and if I will now go to the browser, so then you will see there will be nothing on the screen. So there is an error. So import in the body of the module render to top. So actually there is an error, I think. So the error is because we are now rendering the URL here between the import statements. So we need to remove that, and then we can add after the import statement, and then you will see it will be compiled successfully, but there will be an error there on the screen. If I will now go to the books, there will be an error. So if I will now go to the inspect, and then you will see we are now sending the request to the server, but this localhost 5000 books is not found because we haven't opened the backend server from that. So we need to go to the backend here. So it will go to the backend, 3D backend, and then we need to start the server from the backend also. So it will start the server to the app dot at the localhost 5000 and then slash books. So it will get all of the books from here. So now you will see it is connected to the database now. So once if I will now refresh the page from the books, so now you will see there should be some data from that. So actually localhost 3000 5000 books not found, so we need to fix that. So now there is something between the URL like inverted comma, so we need to remove that. So if I will now save again, and if I will now refresh the page, so now we should see there should be some data. So now you will see there is an error like this is a course error, like XML HTTP request is now blocked as per the course policy. So this error is because the course don't allow to send the request to the different server to that, and this is a browser security, so we can disable that. And for that we can go to the backend, and then we can go to the app.js, and then we can use here the course, and first we need to import the course from that. So we need to go and we need to stop the server once, and then it will be the server there, and then we need to install the course, which will help us to block the security. We cannot send the request to the another database server, and for that the node.js uses the by default course. So then we can use here the course between that. So the app.use, there will be the middleware for the course. Const course will be equals to the require, and the require function will get the course which we installed, and then it will be the app.use, and this will be the course which we have imported, and then the course function will be now called here. So now if I will now save, and if I will now just run the server again, npm start, and then if I will now move on to the server here again, so we have to wait till it installs. So once I will refresh the page, so now you can see there is a books array, and it is coming again and again and again and again, and but it is a books array, and now the data is coming, and now we need to fix that also. So then we need to go to the books.js, and then we need to render here something like it should contain an empty array in the dependencies array. So now you will see now the array is now changing every second. So now it is now running there again and again. So if I will now provide an empty array, so it will be called only once. So if I will now save, and if I will now refresh, so now you will see it will be called only once, and now after that it won't be any call. So now you will see we have a books array, and it is rendering only once as we have specified an empty array. So now we can just make use of this data here. So then we can just set the data, so, and now we have the data in the books, and now we can render here some books inside the UL, and then we can just design a page for layout for that. So instead of this all books here, so we can render a UL, and the UL will contain a books like whenever, so when we will have the books in the database, and then we can render here as the books, and then we have here the books array with the book object. So then it can be data dot books. So now the array will now be stored in the data dot books, and it will contain only the array. So we can render here the books dot map, which is the array dot map function, which returns every array with that. So it will contain a callback function inside that. The first value will be the iterator as the book, so it will iterate all of the books with that, and then second value will be the number, which is just key. We can say like it is just the number, like it is rendering from the 0 then 1 then 2, so it is just a iterator number. And you can say about the I, it can be an I, and then we can render here something with that. Inside that we can render a div which will contain something, and then inside this div is actually the wrapper here, and then this div will contain a key as the prop, and the key will be equals to the I, and each component should have the key with the component, and then we have the key here with the key, and then we can render here a single book component inside that. So we are now rendering all of the books inside that, and it will render every single book which we have there. So it will be the book only, and then we need to import the book from here. So this book now will contain all of the things which will contain all of the data inside that. So we need to get this data, and then we need to pass the data to the books. So these books will contain the props which we will receive, and then we will send the data to the props, and then it will receive all of the data to the props. Like we can just destructure the props, like it will contain an ID from the MongoDB, the name, the author, and it will contain the description, and it will contain the price, and this will contain the image. All of the things will be contained in the props dot book. So we have to render every single book here. So then this div can contain something inside that. Like first it will contain an image. The source of the image will be like the book, will be it will be like the name of the image only, because now we are now getting the image from that, and the alt can be the name of the book only, and then it will contain an article tag, and the article tag will contain the by, like by, and then we can render here the author. So article will contain a by, and then it will contain a h3 tag which will contain the name of the book, so it will be the name, and then we can render a price as the paragraph tag with the description. Sorry, the description will be there with the paragraph tag, so we can render here the description, and then we can render here one more thing with the h2 which can be the price. So it will be like the rupees, and then it will be the price which we have, then it will be closed. So this will be all of the things with that, and we can render some more buttons here also to edit the details. Like it can be button from the material UI, like, and the button, we will render all of the things inside the button, and it will be update, and then there will be another button which will be the delete. So there will be two buttons, and then once we will click on the update, it will go to the update page of the products, and it will update the page. So we will add that functionality later, but now we will render all of the books inside that. So now the props should contain a props.book. So then we need to pass here the book inside the props, like book, and the book will equals to the main book which we will render here. So this will contain every single object which it contains in the book. Like here it will contain every single book object, like 0 and 1. So it will be the book only, so it will render all of the books inside that, and then we can import the book also from here. The book will be imported, and then if I will now save, and once if I will now go to the screen, so now you will see this contain all of the books and all of the books that we have in the database. But now the design is not good, so we have to fix the design also, and now you will see all of the details are now here of the book. So then we need to render the cards to the images, and then first we need to go to the books.js, which is the root container of the books, and then we can render here some the, and then we can create the css file for the books or css. It will be like the book.css file, and the css will work in all of the books. And now before that, this component, this div will contain a class name. The class name will be equals to the book. So if I will now save, and if I will now go to the book.css, and then we can just add some css to it, like books or css. So first it will contain a ul which we are now rendering. The ul will contain a display as the flex, as it will be a flex box now. So the flex direction, so now the flex direction will contain there a row. And if I will now save, and if I will now just import the books.css with that, so it will be import, then we need to import the book.css. So now you will see there will be some change on the screen. So if I will now save, once it will be compiled, so now you will see, and now you will see the books will now contain in the row in the cards, like there and there. So we need to go to the book.css, and then we need to add some more functionality, like justify content will be equals to the in the center, and then align content, it will also be in the center, and then we can just wrap all of the things inside the wrap, like it will contain a wrap inside that. So now you will see it will contain in the center of the web page, and then it will be a wrapped, and then we can add here a card with that, like this will contain a card, or then we need to go to the book.js which we have there, and then we can render here a card, like this div will contain a class name will be equals to the card, and then we need to import the book.css also from here. So import will be the books.css. So book.css here will be imported, and now this div will contain a class name card. So we need to go to book.css, and then we can render here the card functionality with that. So once the dot card will be there, and then it will contain a margin as the automatically there inside the spaces, and then it will contain a padding which will contain a 1 rem, and it can contain a width of something like 300 or like 250 px of the every card, and the height of every card will be equals to the 100. We can default as 100, and then the box shadow can be there like it will look good, so it will be the 5 px from the down, 5 px vertically, and then the 10 px will be the blur, and then the color will can be ccc, which will be a little bit gray, and then we can enter the align items as the center. So if I will now save, so now you will see there will be some padding there onto that cards and all. So now you will see this will contain some things here. So now that this is now big and this is now small, so we need to render the height as the 100 px. So 100 px will be now good for all of the things. So actually now the design is not looking good, so we need to fix that also. So we can fix this error by going to the css files. So we need to go to the books.js, sorry, and then instead of this div we need to render the li, because we have rendered the ul, and this should be always the li. So this will contain a li as the class name equals to the book, and we can also remove the class name for it. So then we need to go to the ul, and then inside the ul there will be a li, and this li will contain a padding pixels, and then after this 10 pixels we can move on to the width, and then the width of the whole list element will be like the 250 pixels, and then we can also define a max width as the max width can be like the 250 pixels, it will be the same, and then it can be like the maximum height, then the maximum height can be the 400 pixels each. So all of the things can be done. So if I will now save, and if I will now go to this, so now this should be the behavior of that, and then instead of defining the values to the height and width, then this parent element will get the value, like the height will be the 100% of that, and the width will also be the 100%, like it will be the 100%, and there will be no any padding between that, and then the margin will also be removed from that. So if I will now save, and I should see if there is some change in the screen. So now you will see there is some change on the screens, and now this is the behavior which we want, and then we can move on to the card, and then instead of this card, if I will now go to the book.js, so then you will see inside the card we have the image, article, paragraph, h2 and the buttons. So we can go, and then we can target the card and the card image element, and then the image element can have the width equals to the 100% of the parent element, and the height can be like the 45% or like the 50% of the parent element. So if I will now save, then we should see some change on the behavior. So now you will see there is some change, and we can also define some padding inside the card also, which we have removed, like it can be some padding, like it can be 1 rem, so it should be okay, I think. So now you can see there will be some padding between that, and then we can just define some more things, like now you can see this card is looking good, but this card is now not looking good, and then we need to fix that. So we can fix that by checking their length and alignment. So if I will now move on to this, and then you will see this contains an article tag, and then if I will now go to the heading, so then you will see this contain a margin of 18.72 pixels there. So we need to fix that margin from here. So we need to go to the image, and then we need to go to the h3 element which we have here, dot card, and we need to target the h3, and then we need to set the margin as the 0. So now you will see this will be moved to the up. So now you will see the content is now moving up, and then if I will now provide the padding, so the padding can be 5 pixels to it. So if I would now save, so now you will see this will contain a padding of the 5 pixels, and same for the paragraph tag which we have for the description, this contain a margin of the 16 px as the default. So we need to change this as the card, and then the paragraph tag which we have inside that, so the paragraph now will contain a margin as the 0. So if I would now save, now you will see the paragraph is now moving up, and now this will contain this design, and now this will also be there, and now we can set the padding to it as the 3 pixels of all of the sides. So then this will contain a 3 pixels, and then this will contain, so if I would now go to this, So this update and delete buttons will now having the margin and the padding of the 6 pixels and the 8px, which is good, but we need to render it inside this. So and this h2 is now getting the margin of the 19 pixels, so we need to fix that. So it will be the dot card and it will target the h2 element, and then it will can be the margin and it can be the 0. So if I would now save, now you will see this will contain a price in the description in the end. And now we need to fix these items also, like this is containing some spacing and all, so we need to fix the spacing of this. So now the behavior is because we have now to fix one thing in the index.css, and if I will now go to the index.css, so now you will see there are some designs over there and we need to just remove these designs, and I will now comment it out and I will now add here as a star, which will select all of the elements, and it will have the margin of the 0 and it will have a padding of the 0. So if I will now save, so if I will now go to the Chrome, so now you will see now all of the things will be now okay. And now we need to fix in the books.tss, and I have removed all of the things which we have targeted inside that. And then we need to target a single thing, like there will be the card, and then there can be the article tag inside that, and the article will now contain a padding of the 5 pixels. And if I will now save, now you will see there will be the padding over there. And now instead of all of the things now, and now if I will now add it as a display, and the display will be the flex of this. So if I will now save, now you will see all of the items now will be in the row, and now we need to fix that as the flex direction. So the flex direction will be now in the column. So if I will now save, they will be in the columns now. And then now you will see is some improvements over there, and then we can add there as the justify content as the center, and now all of the things will now be considered in the center inside that. And now if I will now save there, so now you will see we have now the buttons here and the update and delete buttons over there. And now in the buttons over there we need to fix one thing. So we can add a sx prop to it, like it will be sx, and then it will be as the margin top as the empty will be equals to the auto. And then we have to do the same for it, like sx will be equals to the margin top as the auto. So if I will now save, now you will see they will be aligned perfectly over there. So now you will see they are now aligned. And now we need to add one more thing to it, and then we can add some paddings over the description and all of the things. So then we need to go to the book.css, we need to select the card, and we need to select the h3 element now. So the h3 will now contain a margin or like directly the padding to it, and it will be like the 4 pixels. So if I would now save, now you will see this will contain a padding over there. And now for the description we need to show the card and .p, the padding will be the like the 3 pixels again, will be the 3. And now it will contain a card and it will contain a h2, which is the price. So we need to fix that price here also. So then instead of this h2 we can render here as the h3 only, so it will be the h3 again. So if I would now save, and if I will now go to book.css, so card.h2 will be removed. And if I will now save again, now you will see this will look good now. And now if you will just now scroll it down, and if you will just resize the window, now you will see this will look the responsiveness inside that. So now this will be the responsive site over there, and then now we can build more of the products over there. So now the product functionality, now this will be completed because this code is designed for the MERN Stack development and not for the CSS development. So then now we can move on to the add products now, and then we can add the products to the database. If I will now go to the add, so now you will see this container add books from here. Once if I will now click on the books, now we have the books over here. So then we can fix all of these functionalities now, and then we can build now the add product. So now the application is now running, and now we need to build the add product functionality which will add the books to the database. So we need to go to the addbook.js, and then instead of this div we need to render the form. So the form tag will be here and the action will be removed from here. So now this will be the form, and inside of this form we need to build the text fields, which is the input fields from the material UI. So it will be the text field. So the text field will contain some things, like it will contain, first thing it will contain a margin, like margin will be the normal in all cases, and then it will contain a full width, which will be the full width of the available screen, and then the variant can be the equals to the outline, so it will be the outline form. And then it will contain some more thing, like the name will be equals to the name of the form, like this will be the name. And before this text field, so we can also render a form label, so it will be the form label. so it will be automatically imported from the material UI. And the form label we can provide like the name. So then we can provide some more fields like the name here from this. So it can be this, so we can copy this out and then we can just paste here 3 more times like this, and then this, and then this. So first the name and the author. The name will also be the author, and then it will contain the name as a description. It will also contain the description over the name in the name, and then it will contain the price, and then it will also contain the price over here. So this is the price. So if I will now save, then we have to see if the price is here, so we need to remove this price. If I will now save, so now we should see some forms over the add book state. So then you will see now we can see some forms here with the material UI, and then it is looking very dangerous, so we need to fix that. So we need to render it inside the div. So we have a material UI div inside that which contains a box, and then we can just add some more functionalities to the box from the material UI. So it will be the box, and then it will add a flex box layout into that. So we can add a box in that, and the box will contain the display will be equals to the flex over there, and then we can define more things like the flex direction will be equals to now the column. So if I will now save, and if I will now just copy the box closing tag from here to before the form, so here, so if I will now save, so I should see the form over here. So now there should be no any difference. So now there is no any difference. But if I will now add here some more fields, like it can be like the justify content, like it will contain a justify content. So the justify content will be over there, and it will be the center, and then it will contain a max width, which is the maximum width to be available to this box. So the max width can be equals to like the 700 to the screen. So if I will now save, then we should see the max width of the 700. So now you will see the max width is now the 700, and then we can align some more things like align items, like the align content or align items will be equals to center. We can define more items like here, like the align self will be equals to the center, and then there can be some more items like the, and it will contain a margin as the left will be equals to the auto, and it will contain a margin right will be equals to the auto. It should be in the center of the page. So now we will see it's in the center of the page, and then we can just write a margin top. Margin top will be equals to, like if I would provide a 20, so it should be 20 over the top. Now we can see it is too much, so it can be the 10. So now you will see the margin is now good. So if I will now save, so now we can see there is a form over the screens which contains a name, the author, the description, and the price over there, and the price field will be the number here, so it will be the number. So this tag full type will be equals to a number. So now it will be in the number format. So if I, so now you will see it is in the numbered, and now we will also add a button over there. So we can the button of the material UI, and then the type of button will be equals to a submit, and then it will contain like add a book. So if I would now save, now we should see the button over there also, like the add book button is there, and then it can be the variant will be equals to like the content. If I would now save, then I should see the button variant will be now the content. So now this is the form to add the book to the database. So now this form layout is completed, and now we need to handle this form, and to handle this we need to create a useState variable with that. It will the useState. So the useState is there, and then we need to just create a snippet of the useState, like it will contain two values. First it will contain all of the inputs object inside that, and then the second variable will be like will update all of the inputs, and then the initial variable will contain an object which will contain a name property as an empty string, and it will contain a description will contain an empty string again, and the price will again contain an empty string, and then it will contain the author, which will also contain an empty string, and then it will contain a available, which will also contain an empty field, and it will contain an image. So we didn't render two fields here for the name and the image, so we can just copy this out, and then we can just paste again, So this text field will contain another things like this. After the price will contain two fields as the name and the available. So the name would be the text field as the same like the image, and then it will be the type will be equals to the like the we can remove this type, and the by default type will be the text. So we can just name here as the available as the image. So this will contain the image URL, so we need to provide the image URL to this price. After this price, this will contain an image URL over there. So now we can just add some more things over there, and it will contain a checkbox. So we need to go to the material UI, we're gonna checkbox, and then we need to just import this checkbox component from the material UI so we can see if there is any checkbox available. So we can just grab this checkbox over there. So this checkbox will be okay for us. I think this checkbox will be okay. So we need to just get this checkbox as the form control, the checkbox. So we can just see if there is any other available which will just, so then you will see now this checkbox will be available. So this checkbox we will use there. So we can just grab this code, we can click on the source code, and then we need to just get here the form control, and the label will be equals to the checkbox. It will be there. So if I will now save, then I should see there should be the checkbox over there after this text field. So if I will now add here as the form control label, and then it will also contain a one more thing, and then it will contain a checkbox, and it will automatically import it from the material UI. So if I would now save, then we should see the checkbox over there in the application. So now you will see this contains a label, and then if I will now just change here the label of it, so it will contain, instead of this label, it will contain the available in the stock, and then the default check will be equals to like the true, and then we can just define it as the values. It can define as checked, so we can just define a checked as the by default will be equals to the false always, and then we will just do it dynamically over there. So if I would now say, then the by default checkbox will be the false over there in the available. So if I will now save, and if I will now reload, then now you will see the checked status will also be the false. So then we can just handle the forms with the inputs over there as we have discussed. So the available can be the false. So then we need to handle these forms inside every text field component, and to handle this we can just add here a single name, like this name will contain the name over there, and then the value will also be there. So the text field value will be equals to the inputs which we have. It will dot name property of the inputs, so it will contain the name, and it has the name equals to the name, and then we can just define one more thing as the on change. So whenever the input will be changed, so it will go to the function as the handle change. So the handle change function would be there after we have defined all of the things, and then we can just copy this input.name to every other field like the author. We can just define it as the author inside the text field, so it will be there, and now you will see it will contain the input.author. So the author will now be there, then just we can just go to the text field as this. So this text field will contain the description, so it will contain the description. So the description is there, and then we have to see the name is equal to description again, and then this contains a price, so we can define here as the value again as the inputs dot price, and then handle change function would be there again, and then we can just define here an image URL, and image URL will also be the same as we have to define the inputs dot image. So the image will be there, and the on change will be equals to the handle change, and then the checked will be equals to like the input dot available. So this will define us as the checked, and then we can define here the on change, and the on change will equals to the, and this will having a different on change, so we can just skip that part. So if I would now save, then I should see the all of the things there, and then we have to define here the handle change function. So the handle change function would be there before the return statement. Const handle change will be equals to an event there, and then the event will be thrown to it whenever we will point to the functions. So once it will just change here the, whenever the input will be changed, so it will point to this function, and this function will get the event prop here, and then we can just define it as the events. So here we need to set all the inputs. So first the inputs will contain its previous state. So it will contain the previous state which it have, and then we can just define here an object inside that, and this object will now be containing the previous state which we have in the inputs from this spread operator. And you can see about the spread operator in the ES6. And then we need to render here now the name. So first, this property name will be available as in the e.target.name. So it will be the e.target.name, and then it will contain a value as the e.target.value. So this will contain all of the things. So if you are not sure about it, so I will now comment it out, and if I will now just console.log that what I am doing here, it will be the e.target.name, and then it will contain as the value, and then it will contain e.target.value. So this name which we are providing here to the all of the text field inputs like here, so this will be gone to the e.target.name. This it will update the value of the e.target.name here like this. So if I would now save, and if I will now just console.log that what I am doing here with the names, so it will go to the inspect, and then we need to just go to the console window over there. The console is there, and then if I would now add here something to the a, so then you can see the name value will now is equals to the a, and then if I will now add here the author, so then you will see the value is equals to the a again, and then the description 1 2 3. So if I will not define anything, so then it will go to the 1, and then if I will not define something to the price like 1 again, so then you will see price value 1, and then you can see the name of all of the text fields are now containing there, and then the image URL h, so then you will see it contains an h. So it will contain all of the latest names which we will done from using the on change. So whenever the input will change, it will send the latest state snapshot of the input field to this function. So then we can update this function over here from the set inputs, and then we can just comment this console.log over there. So it will just grab the previous state. Like if I would now provide here the a, so then it will also store the previous a over that. So that's why we are providing a previous state, and then we are providing a target.name to the target.value. So if I would now save, then I should see it will just change here the values. So now you will see the values are now changing for the author, the description, for name, and the price, and all of the things. So the values are now changing over there. So we can define anything over image also, and the available also. So now all of the things are now working. So now we need to work on the available part. So the available will be equals to the new useState function, and it can be a useState snippet. So the useState snippet, so it will contain a checked, and then the sec checked, and by default it will be the false. So we can define it as the false. So we can just remove here as the available from here, or we can just save it. Okay. So then if I will now just add it as the checked will equals to the checked, and then the on change of it will be equals to a new function, and this function will contain an event, and this event will be equals to the at the set checked. So this will call the set checked function, and then it will update the set checked value to the opposite of the checked. So it will add the opposite value of what it has in the previous state to the checked. So if I will now save, then I should see it will be checked and the unchecked again and again. So now you will see the values are now true and false save over there. Now we can submit the form, and to submit the form, first thing will be so logging the data into the console. So it will be on submit prop, on submit will equal to the handle submit. So we need to create the handle submit function over there. So it will contain a handle submit const. Handle submit will be equals to a function which contains an event, and first thing it will just prevent the default behavior of the form layouts, like it reloads the page whenever the form is sent. So it will prevent default. So it will just add that, and then if we will just console.log the value of the inputs. So if I would now save, and if I would now just go to the Chrome again, if I will now just delete all of the things in the console window, so then delete again. So then the name would be like it will be the mindset. The author can be anything like the Daniels, and the description can be this is a new book by me, and then the price can be here 85, like the 8500, and then the image URL can be a sample URL, and then it is available. So if I will now save and if I will now just click on the add book, so now you will see all of the things are now rendering onto that. So all of the things are now there, and it is wrong is because the available, because we are now sending the same available to that. So or we can just remove this from that, and then if I will now just save and if I will now just add here inputs, and then it will also contain the checked. So if it is now checked, so then it will show us the checked is true or not. So it will be the name, again the mindset, again the author can be a Sam, description can be anything like this, price can be 123, the image can be URL, the available is true. So if I will now click on the add book, now you will see all of the things are now rendering over there. And now the only thing which is remaining is to send the product to the database, and that thing will also be covered within a moment. So it will be the new request. So we have to create a new function to send the request to the database. So this screen will be here. So now we can just create a function as the const send request will be equals to a function, then it will be an async function because it is an async task. So it is an async function, and then we need to import the Axios to send the request. So Axios is now imported over there. So then we can just make use of it. So the Axios dot, it will be the post request. So it is a post request, and then we need to send the request to the URL, and the URL we have to define is what we have there. So like the URL is http/localhost at 5000 and /books. So this is the URL which we have over there, and then we can just send the data in the object there. So now we can send data to object. So then it will contain the name field of the database. So name can be like it will contain the input dot inputs dot, it will contain the name as the name, and it should be wrapped inside the string so that the validation should occur every time. So it will convert it to be the string. To the name we have to add here the author. It will be the author field in the database, and then the author field will then connect it to the string. So inputs dot author, which we have the key in that, and then it will contain the description. The description will go on again to the string, and then it will be the inputs dot description that we have in there, and then we can just add here the price would be into the number. So it would be the number field, and then we have to get the inputs dot price would be there, and then we can add an image URL. It will be the image, and it will be again the string, and then it will be again the inputs dot image key, and then we can add here the available field. So our available field will be there. Available will be equals to like the boolean, we need to convert it into the boolean. So the boolean value will be there as the checked there. So if I will now save and if I will now just check, because we have an asynchronous task, so we have to just await for it till it completes. Await. So when it will complete it, so then it will send us the then request, because it is now a promise based behavior. So we can add a then, and the then will get a response variable as a callback variable, and then it will add as the response dot data. So it will add here the response dot data into that. So if we would now save and if I would now call here the send request function into the handle submit for there. So here in the handle submit function we have to get the send request function. Send request will be called, and then we can use a then statement to it, and then after the send request now will be called, so we can then push the users to the books page. So for that we need to import something from the React router DOM. So it will be the const, it will be the history, and it will be equals to the use navigation. So the use navigation is available in the React router DOM, which will help us to send the users to the different URL with that. So we need to import the use navigation hook from that. So it will be the import use navigation, and it will be from the React router DOM. We have to see if it is available or not. So now we can see we have to see if it is the same or not. So this hook is the use navigate, not the use navigation. So it would be there. So it would be again the use navigate. So it will be added there, and then if I would now give it reference to the history variable there, so it will get the reference, and then we can just send here the data to that. So it will be the history, and then we need to call it, and then we need to add the URL. So it will add here to there at the books. So if I would now save, so now we need to just send the request. So the name can be the mindset, the author can be like the Jennings, the description can be like this is the new book by me, the price can be, it will be 850, and then the image URL can be a sample image, so I will pick the sample image. So the image URL is now added and it will be the available field. So if I will now save, and if I will now just add the book, and if I will now just go to the inspect and the console window to see if there is any error or not, so the add book is now clicked. So now you will see the mindset is now added to the database, and now we can see it in the books window, and now the URL is also the book. So now we can see all of the things are now working fine. So now we can just add the update functionality after it. For the update functionality, first we need to go to the app.js, and then we need to add a route to update this. So it will be the route. So the path route will be is equals to the, like, first it will be the books, and slash it will be the ID of the book, like it will be the book slash ID. So the ID field would be there, and then we can just pass here the element. The element would be, then it will be the product, like the book detail. So we have to add a book detail component over there, and then it will add here the exact field to that. So the exact, so that it should match the exact path of the URL in the parameters in the URL params, and then we can just create a book detail component here as the RFCE. So we have to add it, and then we can just import it in the app.js over there. So the app.js will then be imported the book detail component. So now you will see it will be imported, and now this ID is the ID which will be the variable in the parameters. So the parameter will have an ID after the books, and then it will update this book over the ID. So first we will go to this URL, and then we will go to this component, and then this component would fetch this ID from the database via the get request, and then it will render all of the details from it. So we need to go to the book detail. So here we have a book detail, and then in the book detail we can just render all of the things. Like the first we will have a use effect task. So first it will be the first, so we need to as is the use effect. So the use effect would be there, so it will be imported. So use effect would be there, and then there will be a callback function inside it, and then there will be an empty parameters. So first thing would be first to get the URL ID from that, and to get the URL ID we have a route, we have a hook in the React router DOM. So the hook name is the use params, so we need to import the use params. So to get the ID, const ID will be equals to the use params, which will be imported from the React router DOM, and then we need to pass the parameter name here, which we pass the ID to that. So the use params we need to pass the ID here, and the ID is the same ID which will pass to that. So if this would be like the BID, so then we need to add here as the BID, because this will be the same variable name. This should always be the same variable name to that. So I would remove the B from there and from there as well, and then I need to just get this ID. So if I will now just console.log this ID in that, so the ID will be now console.logged. So if I would now save, and if I would now go to the React app, and then after the books, if I would now add anything ID like 1 2 3, so there should be the product detail component, and if I will now just inspect, so there should be the ID over there as the 1 2 3. So now you will see 1 2 3 is the ID which we will get, and if I will now change to anything like 1 2 3 3 3 or anything, so then you will see the IDs, the URLs ID now we can get here. And now we will fetch the ID from this URL, and then we will create a new get request by ID, and then it will be fetched a single product with the same ID. So then we can add here in the use effect, like it will be the, we can create a new function again as the fetch handler. So we can just create here, and it will be just a single line. So it would be in the const fetch handler will be equals to the function, and then it will be handling the fetch request to that, and it will be an async task, and then we can just await for a task, await axios, and it will be dot axios dot, it will be the get function. So it will get the ID from that. So there would not be the simple strings here, and there would be which will be the template literals. So there would be like this type of strings, and then it will be http slash, it will be the localhost, and the localhost is the 5000, and slash books, and then we need to pass the ID of the book. Like now we need to get this ID, and then we can add it in the expressions. So this dollar sign and then the curly brackets here. So then we can add any variable inside that. So we will get the same ID from that. So the await axios.get, so it will be the then, and then the then will get a response, and then we can just convert here the response to the data format inside that. So if I will now just save here as the console.log as the response.data, so we should see the data over there. And then in the array of the dependencies of the use effect, we can add a ID. So whenever the ID will be changed of the URL, it will be fetched as the same product which we have. Like whenever the ID will be changed, so we can fetch that product with this ID. So it will be the ID. So if I would now save, and if I will now just call the fetch handler inside the use effect again, so now you will see if we can now get this ID, and if we can now get this product from the URL, so it would be there. And then we can just go to the books. Now the first thing would be, I think we have now gone to the book detail, but we need to get this update button. Okay, and so for that we have missed that. So we need to go to the books.js and the books.js, and then we are now rendering every single book. So if I would now go to the book, so then we can add here a link to this update button. So button will get a link component as we did in the routes in the header application. So it will be the link component, and it will be the link, and it will be imported from the React router DOM. So it will be the link, and then we can pass a prop to the 2, and then the 2 will be equals to slash, there will be the string as the books. So the slash books will be there, and then the ID, and the ID we are now getting the ID as there. So this ID would be there as underscore ID, which the MongoDB gives us. And then so if I will now save, and if I will now just go there to the books component where we have all of the books here, so there is an error, I think. So the link is not defined from the React router DOM, so we have to just import the link from the React router DOM. So now you will see it is now imported. So if I will now save, so there should be no any errors over there. So now it is compiled. So if I will now just click on any URL, like if I will now just click here the world power on the update, so now you can see we have a ID over there in the URL. So whenever we click any of the book now, so update, so then you will see we have a ID on the URL, and then update, and then the ID of the URL, and now we have the ID. If I will now go to the console, so now we can see we have an object over there which we are now fetching from the book detail component. So whenever the URL will be this, like any ID after the books, so this function, this component will now run. And then if I will now go again, like if I will now click on the world power again, so now you will see we have a book array again, and now this is a world power. So now this is how can we do all of the things now. And now we can just add here the form here as we did in the book.js, in the addbook.js. So I will go to the addbook, and if I will now grab this form from there as this from this component, so we have to grab this form, and then we can just add the form to the book detail also. So it will be after the div, it will be the form there. So now we have to import everything over there, like the button from the material UI. So this button will be then removed from there, like the add book. So instead of this add, it will be the update book, and then we can just add import the form control label from there, and then we can just import and if I will now just remove this from, so then we can just import the checkbox also. So the checkbox will be imported, and the text field will then be imported, and the form labels will then be imported again. And then we can just add here the box. I think the box will also be imported, and then we need to create these functions like the handle submit, and then the input variables like the input.name and all, and then we have to get this input.author. So we have to fix all of these now. So first we will create a variable of the useState variable. So it will be like the const, and it will be the inputs, and then it will be the useState variable. So I will now grab the useState snippet. So first it will be like first the inputs, and then we can just add here the set inputs, and then this will be an empty object as of now, and this inputs now will be the dynamic inputs, and all of the things will be now get it from the from Axios request. So then we can just add all of the things here. So then after this fetch handler, so then it would get now the data. So then function would be there, and then the data would be there now. So then we can just add to the inputs, like that will be the set inputs which we have. So it would get all of the data that we have in that. So data.book will have all of the things, because now we have now got the data.book with that. So if I will now just go to console, if I will now check, so then you will see we are now getting the object with the book, and the book object is there as the author, available, description, image, and everything. So then we can just add a data.book. So if I would now save, and if I would now just get all of the things, like we have the inputs here, and the inputs now for dot name will be there after the use effect call, and then this will be run after the every id change, and then we need to get this handle submit function. Const handle submit will be equals to the function. This will get an event, and then first we have to call the event of prevent default, and then if I would now save, and then we need to create one more function which will be the handle change, which will be create whenever any handle change will be there, whenever any change of input will be there. So const handle change will be equals to the function which will grab an event parameter in there, and then we need to just console.log about the event that, so we can just do that as of now event. So if I would now save, and now we have created all of the things that we need there. So the handle change is there and all of the things is there. So if I will now save, so I should see, so there should not be any error. So I think we have here an error. So if I will now just grab this error by scrolling to up, so the checked and the set checked, and these are not defined, so we have to define all of these set. So the checked are used in the, I think in the form control label, so it will be the use state variable again. So first we need to set here the checked. So first we will get here as the like const, it will be like the checked in the state, and the set checked, and it will be the use state again, and the use state will get a variable as the false as the initial value. So now if I will now save, so the default value will be the false. So if I will now save, so now you will see there is no any error. So if I will now go to the page, and uncaught private that cannot read properties undefined of the book, and then in the await, so then we can just get the response dot data. So it will be the response dot data would be there. So if I will now save again, and if I will now just get there, so then we should see all of the things there. So we can just add a validation over there, like whenever we will have the form, like so now this form will be in the expressions, and then the expression would be there like when we will have the inputs, when we have the data in the inputs, only then we will render the form there. So if I will now save, so then it's like whenever we are now sending the response dot data to it, so then we can add a another then statement over there, and then it will include the data in it. So then this data will now be set inputs. So then set inputs, so it will be the data dot book, and if I will now just console.log here the inputs also, and then we can just remove here the then statement after this. So this will be the promise handling. So then if I will now just console.log the inputs over there, so whenever then we will have the inputs, so it will add the form there. So if I will now save, then I should see there will be some data over there. So now we can see all of the things are now there in the name, in the form. So then we can see there are all of the things there, but we cannot change anything over there. Like you can see whenever we will change something, so then you will see this is the events which we are now console.logging here. So we can just remove this event. But now to change the data here, we have to grab the input handler here, and then the handle change will be this function. So in the handle change, we will get the same book, we will add the same functionality which we will had in there in the addbook.js. So we will get the set inputs, and then it will contain the previous state, and the name and the values of all of these will be there. So then we need to go to the book detail again, and then we need to add this data to it. So if I will now save, so now we will see we can now save the data, and then this is now mutable. So all of the things are now changeable over there. So we can just remove the console.log inputs. So now we can see if I will now just remove all of the things from here, so now you will see all of the things are now handled here. And now we can just also import remove the console.log id over there. So now we have to just create here the functionality to just click on the update book, and then it will update the book, and then it will move on and it will navigate to the books over there. So it will be the update. So then we have to just go to the books component over there. So update again, we have to go to books. So here for that we need to create on the handle submit, we need to create again the send request function over there. So with the const send request will be equals to the function, and then this function will be equals to there. So there's some space I think from there. So then the send request function will be an asynchronous task, so it will be the async again, and then this will be the await, and then so the await it will be again the axios which we need to import from there. So axios it will be dot put request now. So now this is the put request, and as we have done the put request in the backend, so we can add a URL as http/localhost, and it will be at the rate 5000, and then we can just get the books and then the ID of the books, and then for the ID we need to pass here the ID. So then we can change the string format over there from this to this, and then we can just add the ID in the expressions like the ID which we have over in there. A put request will get here another parameter, so the put request will get here an object with that, and it will contain all the data which we need to update. So first it will be the name again, it will be the string, so the inputs dot name again, and then we can just grab this also from the addbook.js as we did there, the name as the string dot name available and all of the things there, because we need the same functionality over these files. So I will now just remove this name, and if I will now just add there, so if I will now save, and if I will now just add a response also, so then we need to convert the response to the response.data, and then it will add the data to it. So then we need to call the send request function. So the send request will then be called, and then we can use a then statement again, and this then statement will then be used to send the data to the books URL. So it will be again the const history will be equals to the use navigate. So it will be imported from the React Router DOM as we did in the add book. So we need to add a history would be there, and then we need to pass the user to only the books component after the localhost 5000. So if I would now save, and if I would now just create a, if I would now just go to there, and instead of this world power it will the world power 2, the Sam it will the Daniels, and then this is the description updated, and then the price equals to like the, instead of the 200 it will the 500, and then the image would be now the same, and then this will be the unavailable. So if I will now click on the update book, so I should go to there, and then we should see all of the things here, like now this is by the Sam Daniels, and the book name is now the world power 2, and this is the description updated, and now you can see the price is now updated over there. So now we have created the fetch functionality, we have created the update functionality, we have created the add functionality. So only thing in the CRUD operation which is remaining is the delete. So we can just add the delete operation also by clicking on the delete. So this book would be deleted by clicking there. So then we need to add here a delete. So it will be again the so we can add here an on click. On click will be equals to delete handler. So the delete handler would be there, and then we can create a function as the delete handler over there. Const delete handler will be equals to the function, and then we can just create a new axios request like axios dot it will delete, and then we need to add the ID to the delete like it will be in the strings http localhost, and it will be the 5000, and it will be /books /ID over it. So the ID we have there in the props, which is coming in the props, so it is the ID over there, and then we can just add here a then statement like then to the response, so we can convert the response to data, and then we can just create another then to navigate over the URL. So it will be the response.then as the data, so it will be like the callback function over there. So we can add a use navigate hook as a history equals to use navigate, which will be imported from the React Router DOM. So then we can just add it as a history will be equals to as the push, and then to the books. So if I will now save, and if I will now just run this application again, so I should see there should not be any errors. So if I will now move on to the application, so once if I will now just also refresh the page also, okay, so if I will click on the delete, so I should see this product should be deleted. So if I will now just refresh, so now you will see this product is now deleted. So now the delete functionality is also complete. So now once I will click any of the products, so it will be deleted. So we need to wait, like, so this will be an async task again. So we are now just handling the promises there, so it should be async and await. So then if I will now just save again, and then the history dot push as the books, so we need to just fix that, like why it is not re-handling. So if I will now click on the delete, so I should see this should be deleted as well, the almanac. So now you will see now all of the books are now deleting, and now we can just see that all of the functionality are now working. It's just a minor bug that the page is not refreshing, so we can just manually refresh the page. So we can just also fix this functionality also. So before that, I will add a couple of books here from that. So there should be a couple of books here and delete all of the books. So we will come later after adding the books over there. So I have added a couple of books. So if I will now click on the delete on anything like the power of your subconscious mind, so then you will see now the delete is not working, but I will now refresh the page. So then you will see the delete is working. So for that, if I will now go to the VS Code, and instead of this, so there would be another than statement, but this is not the actual solution, but this is a temporary solution with that, and that this is the way, like history. So the history will push to the main application like the localhost 5000, and then it will be pushed to the books, and then it will render the whole main component, which is a parent component books. So if I will now just refresh, and if I will now just delete anything like delete this book, so now you will see this will be deleted, and then you will see the books are now deleting there in the center. So then to fix that, we need to go to the book.css, and then we need to just modify here the justify content from center to the flex start. So it will be started from the flex start. So if I will now go, and if I will now just create a add product here, so the name of the product would be like the anything like the mindset again, the author will be anything like a Sam, the description would be anything like that this is a great book, and the price will be 1200, and the image will now fetch the image from the URL sometimes. So now I have the image URL, so I will now put this image URL there, and if I will now just add the book, so now you will see this will be added in a row there from there. So now we have built all of the functionalities over there. So now all of the things are now working fine, and now we need to fix this about us page by going to that. So now we can see there's nothing there, so we can just fix that. So if I will now go here, and if I will now create a box which will be imported from the material UI, and then we can create some functionality with the box, like it will contain a display as the flex, and then it will contain a flex direction as the column, and then it will contain a line items as the column as the center, and then we can add some typography inside that typography. So typography, the variant of the typography would be like h2, and then it will contain this is, and like this is a application, this is a CRUD application, and then we can save that. And then if I will now add another typography to it, like it will contain a variant again, it will contain a h3 like by MERN Stack. If I will now save, so I should see all of the things there over there. So now we can see this is a CRUD application by MERN Stack, and then we can add SX prop to it also, like it will contain a font family would be equals to, like we can define any family of the font by this. So the family can be, so we can just scroll down and see what are the things we have in that. So it can be like the fantasy. So if I would now save, then we can see the it would be length like there is an error, so then there would not be any n equals to line because it is an object. So then if I would now say, so then you will see this is a CRUD application by MERN Stack, and then the same font family would be applied to the second as well, second typography as well. So if I will now save, so then now we can see this is the CRUD application by MERN Stack, and then we can just style and home page also. So if I am clicking to this, so now we can see it is not going to the home, so we can fix that also, and then we can fix that by going to the header, and then we can just define here something before the typography. So it will be the nav link inside that, it will be the nav link, and we have to wrap the typography with the navigation component from the React Router DOM, so it will be wrapped inside that. And then just we can just go and then we can just wrap the full typography and the icon with that. And then it will contain a to prop to, it will be like the default URL, which is the home. And then we can just add the SX prop to it, so the color would be the white, so the color will be white. So if I will now save, and if I will now just check this if it is working or not, so now we can see the color is the red, color is the maroon there, so we have to fix that also. So now the color is like different from here, but if I will now click on it, so then you will see now we are in the home page. So to fix the color, we can just add here this style instead of this SX, because hook is from the React Router DOM, so it is not from the material UI in which the SX works. So if I will now save and if I will now go again, so now we can see this will contain a color as the black. And if I will now move on to the add product, and then if I will click on it, so now you can see we are still on the home by clicking on this. So now we can also design a home component with that. So to design that, we need to go to the home.js, and then we can define it by adding a same box to it as we did in that. So the box will be imported from the material UI, so we need to just import that. So the box would be there, and then we can add the typography inside the box. So the typography would be added there, and then we can just create some functionality with the box, like it will gonna display again as the flex, and it will contain the flex direction as the again the column, and it will contain align items at the center. And then instead of this typography, if I will now just add a simple button, so it will be a button, so it will be imported from the material UI. So we need to just import it, and then now we can add a variant, it will be equal to the content inside of this button. Now we can add a typography over there, typography, which will contain a variant as which will be equals to like the h3, and then it will contain like view all products, so it will contain SX prop with the margin top, and it will contain a margin top as in like it can contain a 15. So if I will now save, so now we can see there will be the button over there with the view all products. And then so if I will now click on it, so we should see all of the products, and then it should go to the books. So we can add a button component, like it will give the link component. So the link component would be the link from the React Router DOM, and then we can add here the to prop to specify the link, and the to will be by the slash books. And then we can also change the color of the button from there, from the margin top, so it will contain a background color. So the background would be there, and the background would be like an orangeate. So if I will now save, so then we have a view all products over there, and then we can just hover over it, so then we can see a blue dash, a blue hover effect on that. So if I will now click on this, so now we are now moving on to the books component, and then we are now moving to the books and that. And if I will now click on the add product, so then you will see we are now coming to the add product. And if I will now just click on the update, so then we can see we can just update the register to embed 2. And then if I will now click on the update, so then you will see it will be updated at this. So now you will see the title is updated. And then if I will now just delete any on the book, so if I will click on the delete here, so then now you can see the book is now deleted. So now we have completed all of the functionalities for this CRUD operation. And guys, you can see this is a responsive project. So if I will now just move on to that, if I will now just resize the window over that, so then you can see it is a fully responsive project over there. And this is now built with the material UI, React, Node.js, Express.js, MongoDB, and so many things with that. And we have also used the router of the React, like we have seen the links. So thank you guys for watching this project and working on this project. So thank you guys for watching on this video, and I hope you will like the video. And guys, please subscribe to the channel if you are new on the Indian Coders. And we are now building more projects and more projects on the material UI, React, and the MERN Stack development. So thank you.